Hola friends, hola amigos, ¿cómo están? How are you all? Yo soy Nikki, the Nikki Bannister Language Coaching, and I'm here in my final video as part of a special introduction to this new podcast YouTube channel series that I am going to be launching in 2020 in the new year called Your Best Bilingual Life, and it's a conversational interview series talking to people who have had experiences and whose lives have been impacted and changed and influenced in one way or another by having more than one language in them. So I hope these stories inspire you. I'm so excited to talk to people about their stories, to share them with you all in the new year, and I want to start by sharing a little bit more from mine so that you can get to know me, your host of this new series, Your Best Bilingual Life, a little bit better, and tell you a little bit more too about, of course, how language inspires me, how it inspires what I'm currently working on, how it's inspiring me with new projects and goals for the future. And again, in my first video, I talked about how I actually learned a second language, how another language came into my life in the first place. In my second video, I talked about how being bilingual has changed my life completely from what it would have otherwise been had I not been bilingual, had I only been in one language. And today I'm going to talk about how language inspires me and what I do, and inspires me to set new goals and projects. And these are the same kinds of questions that I am going to be asking and sharing others that I talk to for this series, Your Best Bilingual Life. And from those, I'm going to be sharing stories from my students who are in the process of becoming bilingual or multilingual. I'm going to be sharing stories from my family members who were the original OGs and inspired me in my own journey, and sharing stories from all sorts of really interesting people that I met, artists who travel the world and put together their own YouTube series, musicians who sing and perform in more than one language, journalists, and all sorts of people, teachers, world travelers. I'm so excited to introduce them all to you. But let me start with myself. So I'm Nikki, and I will be your host in this new series. And right now, what I do, since January 2018, I've been running my own business, which is now Nikki Bannister Language Coaching. And this was kind of like the pinnacle of all of my language learning and bilingualism and all those choices I made to pursue a second language and let it affect my career decisions came together when I opened my own business and started a language school, and that is now an online comprehensive language coaching program. And I focus on English and Spanish, the two languages in which I am fluent, and coaching others to their desired level of fluency in those. And I primarily coach adults, and I really put this together, one, because it's a passion of mine, it's a talent area, but really, I put this together because this is what I wish I had as an adult who learned a second language, and I did it all the hard way. I struggled and really got through on grit and determination, and this is the program that I wish I had had. I went ahead and created the program I wish I had had as a language learner. And my desire, of course, is to now provide this to others so that adults who have the desire to learn or better their second language skills and go on a language journey can do so in the fastest, most effective way possible, but also in the most enjoyable way possible, and in a way that inspires and motivates them to continue with a lifelong language journey. And not only that, but to also bring them those same benefits that I got, that I talked about in my second video, that sense of belonging and connection in the world. And one of the really important things that I focus on in my business is having a community for my students where all different levels of students and different language learners are connected together and supporting each other. And you guys, it is such a beautiful thing. It is so cool to watch the practice that takes place in there every week, and the comments and people building each other up and going back and forth and being impressed by each other and inspired by each other. it is, and it's a built-in benefit for language learners because they just get really unlimited practice through this online community. So they have this place to connect no matter where they are in the world, no matter what time of day it is, whether they're currently in a session or they're former students or they're on a break or whatever it is, they're all there together in this community. And then I'm in there too as their coach. And there's, again, that sense of connection and belonging. And of course, along the way, my students are connecting with all sorts of people in their second language, and it really is so inspiring. And I will say that for myself, being a business owner too and running my own business, I have a business coach, and I have a group of mastermind ladies and other entrepreneurs that I am a part of, and I'm always looking for ways to be responsible and effective in my business and things like that. But I work with a lot of other people who are other kinds of coaches, who aren't language coaches, but who are worthiness coaches and business coaches and life coaches and confidence coaches. And it's really, really cool because while maybe at first glance what I do is so different from that, upon a closer look, it definitely isn't. I call myself a language coach for a very specific reason, and that's because I am teaching somebody a second language. I'm providing them, I'm facilitating their learning, and they're guiding them on their language journey. But it's just as valid and authentic a form of coaching as any other, because language learning is really holistic. It's not like you learn grammar over here. Language affects everything in our lives. It's how we communicate and express ourselves, and that is so vitally important. So while I focus on the language and confidence, the meaning and the content of our conversations just covers everything. And I've had multiple students tell me that being in language coaching sessions with me is like being in therapy in a good way. And they just kind of dive into everything. And I think there's also something real to that, like I said in my second video, where sharing a second language with someone is this really intimate experience. I believe part of that comes from there's already a level of vulnerability by reaching out in a language that you're not as confident in, that you haven't had as much experience in. It's setting you up in a little bit more vulnerable way, and it actually opens up these really beautiful conversations. And so we get to know each other really well in the group and just respect all different kinds of perspectives and opinions, and people get to share their experiences. And again, it's all about creating that community and that sense of belonging and connection. So I want my students to walk away not with just a higher level of fluency in the language, but with a much greater sense of confidence that starts in their second language, but that just percolates into every other area of their lives, and a stronger sense of belonging, connection, and confidence, I'm going to say again, as a human being, that really just helps them live more fulfilling, happier lives. And so I love being there for my students. I love the very special kind of relationship that is created between a coach and a client, or a coach and a student, and between my students as well. So everything about my language experience has inspired the work that I do now, and it continues to inspire me constantly by seeing my students' growth and progress. What I find most exciting, more exciting than teaching, more exciting than coming up with new classes, and all of these things that I do that I love, what I find the most exciting and inspirational is watching my students' language fluency grow, especially when they've struggled, especially when it hasn't always been an easy process, when at moments they thought they weren't making progress, or moments they thought, maybe they were getting worse, or moments they maybe wanted to give up. When those students continue on their journey and just kind of turn a corner and summit the mountain, it is such a beautiful thing to see. So I have students that told me, hey, from my very first day, I thought there's no way I could do this. I thought, I made a mistake by signing up, and I'm going to, I'm gonna have to turn around and leave. And I've had students that said, man, I'm just really tempted to, pull out right now. I don't see myself growing, anything like that. And I've seen students that took breaks come back and be reinvigorated and re-inspired. I've seen students that reached out with just the right questions for me, and so they got those questions answered, or they told me what was going on and they were honest about their experience with me, and I was able to coach them through it. And I have, the same student who said from his very first lesson he was ready to throw in the towel and say, I've made a huge mistake, who now just feels completely opposite and says every session flies by, and he is for sure a lifelong language learner, and it's just changed so much for him and inspired new things. So that by far is just a constant source of inspiration. And I think that comes from finding your soul's work. That comes from connecting with, with what your purpose and your desires and your natural gifts are. And so for me, that's all manifested in the business that I have as a language coach. And that looks, there's such a variety of things, and even amongst my students are great examples. I have people in the medical field, and people that work in businesses and nonprofits and education. I have people that work for local government, and I have people that are also entrepreneurs and making their own thing as they go. And so everyone's got a different purpose, right, in a different way that they're inspired in current projects. And I just want to take a look at how language plays a part of that, for me and then for others as well. And so the way that's my current reality. That's what I do with my language coaching business. And then, of course, the things that language has inspired for me with future projects include this new podcast and YouTube video series that I'll be doing on my channel in the new year, Your Best Bilingual Life, having these kind of conversations and interviews with a whole variety of language learners to share their stories and help you get to know what kind of awesome work they're doing and putting into the world, and help to share their story and inspire all these different, inspire you with all these different ways that language can play a role and affect and make a difference in our lives. I am also working on something else that I'm launching in 2020 just amongst my current students, and I'll be launching it publicly in 2021, and that is language travel experiences. Because for me, and again, you can reference back to my previous videos, but traveling played such a key role in connecting the language with my inspiration, with finding those connections outside of my own culture and being able to travel and experience other cultures and perspectives and peoples, and having the language that just unlocked the door and opened up this whole new world to me when I traveled internationally. And I love the way I travel. I feel like I get the best of everything through having authentic language experiences, and then finding these other great authentic experiences. And so that is the kind of travel opportunity that I want to bring and make available to other people who maybe won't otherwise have that because they're not at that level with the language. So my language travel experiences are going to be focused on providing these language travel experiences and trips in other cultures where you get to experience authentic food, authentic nature and beauty, and connections with people in the country and in the culture, and take music lessons, dance lessons, history, have some adventure and adrenaline thrown in, which I also love, but also have a dose of vacation, like pure vacation and relaxation. So a little bit of everything, un poco de todo, all in one trip. And that is why it is truly a language travel experience. And throughout the whole thing, I will be there. So you get to travel with your language coach and be kind of prepped for each day and experience, and recap it and have someone to go over all these questions, so that everything that you're experiencing, you're also absorbing the language through it. So that's a project. I'll be taking a small group of my current students this year this next year in 2020, and opening it up to the public 2021. So that's another thing that language has absolutely inspired for me, another project I'm working on for the future. And then finally, I am a lifelong language learner, and I mentioned this in my first video as well too, but when I first started learning a second language, or started learning 2 second languages at the same time, my goal was to just master the process and then lather, rinse, repeat with a whole ton of other languages. And I wanted to learn so many different languages. I really wanted to learn Arabic, another widespread language that transcends different cultures. I really wanted to learn Urdu because I had somebody that I had dated who spoke that, and I just kind of wanted to show him up and become fluent in Urdu. And I wanted to go back to Italian, was still a goal of mine. When I decided to leave Italian to the side and focus primarily on Spanish, I always wanted to return to the Italian. And then, as I mentioned, in the meantime, in the midst of all of this, French has kind of superseded everything because I planned a trip to France, and that was all the inspiration I needed when the moment was right to hire my own French teacher and start taking my own natural approach French courses. And so for me, absolutely, as an individual, I plan to continue traveling the world. There's nowhere I don't want to go. I want to continue traveling the world, and I want to continue learning languages, as many languages as I can in this lifetime, at whatever levels of fluency that I reach. But it's really important to me that no matter how I do it, that it's always fun, that it's always enjoyable, that I now learn the same way that I teach, that I learn naturally, and that I learn in a way that is effective and fun and gets me the results that I want, being able to really communicate with people in that language with confidence at every level that I have. So I'm continuing my French journey actively in the meantime. And if you have any recommendations for amazing teachers in other languages, definitely feel free to tag them, let me know. And more than anything, if you or you know someone, a friend, a family member, who has a language experience and story to share, some way that some other language other than their native language, some more than one language has played a role in their lives, shaped their lives, they've had an experience with it that shaped it somehow. If you or someone you know has a language story to share, then absolutely tag them and let me know, because I would love to talk to them about being a part of this podcast and video series, Your Best Bilingual Life. So I will put my application into the comments, and you can always forward that to a friend as well. And oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, a way that inspires me combined with this language and this travel is that I have always loved to write. When I was in kindergarten and we had to say what we were going to be when we grew up, I wrote, I'm going to be a writer and a teacher. And I don't know how our kindergarten selves ever know this, but they actually say that it's most accurate, that what you think you want to be when you're like 6 years old is really what you want to be. Like, that's accurate. So, I mean, I also wanted to be famous, and I wanted to be an actress, and all these other things too. But what I wrote in kindergarten is I want to be a writer and a teacher. And by all means, I am a teacher. That's a huge part of my job. And I love to write. I took my best stab at NaNoWriMo at writing a novel in the month of November this year, and I think made it to like the 7th day or so. But I will continue going. In fact, I was a creative writing major in college, and so something that happened is when I started traveling by myself and when I started traveling internationally, I started keeping a blog when blogs were still cool, right? So my blog was Teach, Pray, Love. This was also post-publication of Eat, Pray, Love. And so this was when I was getting my TESOL certification down in Ecuador. And so I started Teach, Pray, Love, the blog, and I continued it when I was in Argentina. And it was just such a great way to share my experiences, totally new and different experiences from people that people at home and family members who, love me and are interested in me, but also people that are just curious about the experience of being in that place, of seeing the sights, of eating the food, all of those things. And so that's something that I'm also working on putting back into my schedule, is keeping up with a blog. And I don't think I can call it Teach, Pray, Love anymore. I think I'm looking for a new name. But that's something that now that I've traveled and I haven't blogged, I've really missed it. I've really missed that experience. So you can say the blogs are dead. Let me know what you think. But I think for me, it's just a natural outlet, and it's something that feels so good. And I, for one, sure really enjoy still reading about people's experiences and people's blogs. So these are some of the many things that inspire me, connected with my love of languages and my future goals that I have, and I'm so excited to share them with you. And I am so excited to wrap up my own story here and start introducing you to some really lovely, beautiful, inspirational people who have language experiences of their own to share, of all different types. So let me know if there's anyone else that I should be talking to, someone who has a language story to share. And again, I'll have my application in the comments for them. But thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I look forward. Let me know what inspires you. Let me know if this inspires you, if you're excited for this series. And I will see you when we launch with our first episode in 2020. Until then, hasta luego.